The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before the HS Artemis, broken only by the distant twinkle of stars and the looming shape of an unknown vessel. Captain Jai-Ho Park maintained his composure as he studied the approaching ship through the bridge's main viewport. His years of experience in the Mars Rebellion had taught him to stay calm in the face of danger. The alien vessel's design was unlike anything he had seen before. Its hull was a maze of sharp angles and geometric patterns that seemed to defy conventional spacecraft engineering. The surface appeared to shift and ripple, suggesting advanced stealth technology that made it difficult to get a clear sensor reading. Navigation Officer Hei-Yun Lee's fingers tightened around her console as she tracked the vessel's approach. "Captain, they're moving in a pattern I've never seen before. Their propulsion system doesn't match any known signatures in our database." Jai-Ho nodded slightly, his expression revealing nothing of his concerns. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, each member trained to handle first contact situations. But this felt different. The way the alien ship moved suggested predatory intent rather than peaceful curiosity. "Multiple weapon systems are powering up on their hull," reported Tactical Officer Sung-Min Kang. "Their energy readings are off the charts. Our shields might not hold against whatever they're carrying." "Keep our weapons powered down," Jai-Ho ordered. "Let's not give them any excuse." He had seen enough conflicts to know that sometimes the best defense was patience. The crew of the Artemis was transporting vital medical supplies to the colonies in the Centauri system. Those colonists were counting on them. Communications Officer Taiwan Kim's console suddenly lit up with incoming signals. "Captain, they're hailing us. The translation matrix is having trouble with their language. But it's definitely a deliberate attempt at communication." The bridge fell silent as all eyes turned to Jai-Ho. He straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Put them through, main screen." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made several crew members gasp. The aliens were tall, their bodies covered in what appeared to be living armor that pulsed with internal light. Their faces were hidden behind masks that seemed to be part of their bodies rather than worn equipment. "Unidentified vessel." The alien's voice came through the translator, crackling with artificial tones. "You have entered claimed space. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are inadequate. Prepare to be boarded." Jai-Ho didn't flinch at the threat. He had faced worse odds during the rebellion. "This is Captain Jai-Ho Park of the HSS Artemis. We are on a humanitarian mission carrying medical supplies. We claim right of peaceful passage under the Galactic Commerce Treaties." A sound that might have been laughter came through the speakers. "Treaties. We are Vazrax. We take what we want. Your species is unknown to us. You will provide an interesting study before we strip your vessel." The transmission cut off abruptly. Hei-Yun's hands flew across her console. "They're moving into position for boarding. Their ship is 3 times our size." Jai-Ho pressed a button on his chair. "All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. Initiate Protocol Omega." Throughout the ship, hidden panels slid open, revealing weapons and armor. The Artemis might look like a simple merchant vessel, but humanity had learned long ago not to send unprotected ships into space. "Taiwan, send a burst transmission to command. Let them know we've made first contact with a hostile species." Jai-Ho stood from his chair, his voice steady. "Sung-Min, power up our defensive systems, but keep them in passive mode. Let them think we're helpless." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, despite never having faced this specific threat. Years of drills and humanity's long history of warfare had prepared them for moments like this. The Vazrax might have superior technology, but they were about to learn that humans were far from primitive. "They're launching boarding pods," Hei-Yun reported. "Impact in 30 seconds." Jai-Ho opened a channel to Security Chief Minji Song. "Chief, are your teams in position?" "Ready and waiting, Captain." Minji's voice came back clear and confident. "We've got surprises set up at every potential breach point. These pirates are about to learn why humans are considered one of the most adaptable species in the galaxy. The first impacts shook the Artemis as boarding pods latched onto the hull. Jiho could hear the sound of cutting tools beginning to work through the outer plating, but he smiled slightly, knowing that the Vaysracs were about to make their last mistake as pirates. "All hands," he said calmly into the ship-wide comm. "Remember your training. Remember Mars. Remember Earth. We are the descendants of survivors, of warriors, of those who never gave up. Today, we show these pirates why humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us." The sound of cutting stopped. In the moment of silence that followed, Jiho thought about all the human history that had led to this moment. Centuries of warfare had taught humans to be innovative, to be ruthless when necessary, to never give up even when outgunned and outnumbered. The first explosion marked the Vaysracs' entry into the Artemis. But instead of finding helpless crew members, they would find trained soldiers wearing battle-tested armor. Instead of easy prey, they would find a species that had turned survival into an art form. "Let them come," Jiho said quietly, checking the pistol at his hip. "It's time to teach them why you never threaten a human ship." The battle for the Artemis was about to begin, and the Vaysracs were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous prey was the one that didn't appear threatening at first glance. For humanity had long ago learned that the best way to survive in space was to always be prepared for the worst, and to make sure that anyone who threatened them lived just long enough to regret it. Security Chief Min Ji-song stood motionless in her powered armor, listening to the rhythmic sounds of the Vaysracs cutting through the airlock. Around her, her security team waited in defensive positions, their own armor systems running silent. The corridors of the Artemis had been deliberately darkened, leaving only the emergency lighting strips casting red shadows across the deck. The cutting sounds stopped. Minji's helmet display showed her team's vital signs: steady, controlled. They had trained for this, even if they had never faced alien pirates before. The inner airlock door began to glow red as the Vaysracs' cutting tools reached the final layer. "Remember," Minji said quietly over the team channel, "let them think they have the advantage. Wait for my signal." The airlock door burst inward with a shower of molten metal. Vaysracs warriors poured through the opening, their living armor pulsing with internal light. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. The first Vaysracs spotted Minji's team and raised its weapon. Energy beams flashed through the corridor, designed to disable electronic systems. But human armor had been designed with multiple redundant systems, learning from centuries of warfare that dependency on a single system meant death. "Now," Minji shouted. Emergency bulkheads slammed down behind the Vaysracs boarding party, trapping them in the corridor. At the same time, hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing automated defense turrets. The Vaysracs reacted with impressive speed, their weapons switching to more lethal settings. But Minji's team was already moving. Their armor enhanced their natural strength and speed, letting them close the distance before the aliens could adjust their tactics. "Keep them contained," Minji ordered, engaging the nearest Vaysracs in close combat. Her armor systems had analyzed their opponent's movements, identifying weak points in their seemingly impenetrable living armor. The corridor erupted into chaos. The Vaysracs fought with advanced technology, but they had never faced humans in direct combat before. They didn't expect the fury, the determination, the sheer adaptability of their opponents. Minji drove her armored fist into a gap in a Vaysracs warrior's protection, feeling the satisfying crunch of impact. The alien staggered back, clearly surprised by the force of the blow. Their living armor might be advanced, but it hadn't evolved to deal with human-designed combat systems. "They're trying to regroup," called out Sergeant Junho Kim, her second in command. "They're using some kind of neural network to coordinate." Minji smiled grimly inside her helmet. "Activate the electromagnetic pulse generators. Let's see how their coordination holds up when we scramble their signals." The corridor filled with invisible waves of electromagnetic energy. The Vaysrax's armor flickered, their movements becoming less coordinated. They hadn't expected humans to sacrifice their own advanced systems, but human armor was designed to function even at its most basic level. "Push them back," Minji ordered, leading a charge that drove the aliens against the sealed bulkhead. The Vaysrax fought desperately now, realizing too late that they had vastly underestimated their opponents. One of the aliens managed to breach Junho's armor with a lucky shot. Minji watched her surgeon fall, but instead of stopping, Junho pulled a combat knife and drove it into the surprised alien's leg joint. The Vaysrax screamed, a sound that proved they weren't as emotionless as they appeared. "Medical team to Section 4, Minji called, while simultaneously engaging two more Vaysrax warriors. Her armor's servos whined with the effort as she lifted one alien and used it as a shield against its companion's weapons fire. The battle continued for several intense minutes. The Vaysrax fought well, but they were learning the hard way that humans had turned warfare into a science. Every move they made had been anticipated. Every tactic they tried had a counter. Finally, the last Vaysrax warrior fell. Minji stood among her team, checking their status. There were injuries, but no fatalities. The armor had done its job. "Status report," she ordered, moving to help Junho to his feet. 5 Vaysrax captured, 3 unconscious, 2 requesting surrender, reported Corporal Yanji Park. "We have wounded, but nothing critical." The armor held up better than expected against their weapons. Minji nodded, then opened a channel to the bridge. "Captain, first boarding party contained and neutralized. Be advised, they're likely to change tactics for their next attempt." "Good work, Chief." Captain Jaiho's voice came back. "We're detecting movement from their ship. Looks like they're preparing a second wave." "Let them come," Minji replied, checking her armor systems. "We'll be ready. They think they've seen what humans can do. They haven't seen anything yet." She looked at her team, proud of how they had performed. The Vaysrax had made the classic mistake of assuming that superior technology meant certain victory. They were about to learn that humans had survived countless wars by being innovative, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. "Prepare for second contact," she ordered. "This time, let's show them why the Mars Rebellion made other species think twice about fighting humans." The security team moved to their new positions, ready for the next wave. The Vaysrax might have advanced technology, but they were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon had always been its ability to turn every defeat into a lesson, every setback into an advantage. The real fight was indeed about to begin. And Minji intended to make sure these pirates never forgot their first encounter with humanity. Engineer Du Yan Choi worked quickly in the dimly lit engineering bay, her fingers dancing across multiple control panels. The sound of distant combat echoed through the ship's corridors, but she remained focused on her task. Around her, backup systems hummed to life as she implemented contingency plans that the Vaysrax couldn't have anticipated. "Life support is down to 30%, her assistant engineer Jai-Won Baek reported, monitoring the main system's display. "They've managed to disable the primary environmental controls." Do-Yun smiled, continuing her work without looking up. "Exactly what I was hoping they'd do. You can tell a lot about someone by what they choose to target first." The engineering bay was a maze of backup systems and redundant controls. While the Vaysrax had successfully targeted the main life support systems, they didn't understand how humans designed their ships. Every critical system had at least 3 backups, each operating on different principles. "Rerouting power through maintenance channels 4 through 7, Du-Yan announced, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Start the auxiliary atmospheric processors. Let's show them why human engineers are the most paranoid people in the galaxy." The ship shuddered as another explosion rocked the hull. The Vaysrax were still trying to gain control of key systems, but they were in for a surprise. Humans had learned the hard way that depending on a single system meant death in space. "They're attempting to access environmental controls through the main computer," Jai-Won reported, his fingers flying across his keyboard. Their software is incredibly advanced. Do Yun nodded, already anticipating this move. Activate the isolated subsystems. Let them chase digital ghosts while we keep the real controls running on separate hardware. She had helped design these systems herself, remembering lessons learned during the Mars Rebellion. The engineering bay's screens flickered as the Vajrax launched another cyber attack. Du Yun watched calmly as their advanced programs tried to penetrate the ship's defenses. What they didn't know was that humans had deliberately kept certain critical systems running on older, simpler technology. Harder to hack, easier to repair. Temperature dropping in sections 5 through 8, Jai-1 called out. They're trying to freeze us out. Time to show them our heating trick, Du Yun replied. She activated a system that began routing excess heat from the engines through the ship's structural supports. It was an inefficient system by modern standards, but it would keep the crew alive. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways. The ship's internal monitors showed the Vajrax boarding parties advancing through the corridors, clearly confused by the ship's continued operation. Their scans would show the main systems as disabled, but they couldn't detect the jury-rigged alternatives that kept the Artemis functioning. They're trying to access the engine controls now, Jai-1 reported, a note of concern in his voice. Their technology is like nothing I've ever seen. Du Yun moved to another console, her expression confident. Doesn't matter how advanced they are if they don't know what to look for. Activate the dummy control systems. Let them think they're winning. The engineering bay hummed with activity as hidden systems came online. The Vajrax would see engine power fluctuating, but the real engines were running smoothly on an entirely separate control network. Humans had learned long ago not to put all their eggs in one basket. Du Yun, Jai-1 called out suddenly. They're attempting to vent the atmosphere in engineering. Right on schedule, Du Yun replied calmly, pressing a sequence of buttons. The sound of emergency seals engaging echoed through the bay. What they don't know is that every compartment can operate independently. We can lose half the ship's atmosphere and still keep fighting. She opened a channel to the bridge. Captain, engineering is secure. They're following the exact pattern we predicted. Permission to initiate Protocol Omega-3. Granted, Captain Jai-Ho's voice came back. Show them why human engineers are the best in the galaxy. Du Yun grinned as she began the final sequence. The Vajrax had disabled what they thought were critical systems, not realizing that humans had centuries of experience planning for worst-case scenarios. Every system they disabled activated another backup, each one more primitive but more reliable than the last. Starting the chain reaction now, she announced. Throughout the ship, systems began switching to alternative power sources. The lights flickered, then stabilized on emergency power. The air circulation shifted to mechanical backup systems. Even the artificial gravity adjusted, running on ancient but reliable technology. The Vajrax were about to learn that humans had survived in space, not through superior technology, but through redundancy, preparation, and the ability to keep fighting long after their enemies thought they should have been defeated. Let them chase our ghosts, Du Yun said, watching the Vajrax waste their efforts on disabled systems. They'll learn what every enemy of humanity has learned. We don't break easily. Another explosion rocked the ship, but Du Yun barely noticed. She was already working on the next phase of their defense, ready to show these pirates why attacking a human vessel was the last mistake they would ever make. The Vajrax might have superior technology, but they were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to survive and adapt against all odds. The engineering bay continued its quiet operation, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. The real battle was just beginning, and Du Yun intended to make sure these pirates never forgot their encounter with human engineering. Lieutenant Jin Wukang checked his armor seals one final time as his strike team assembled in the airlock. Through the reinforced viewport, he could see the sleek hull of the Vajrax ship, still attached to the Artemis by their own boarding tubes. The aliens had never expected their prey to turn the tables. All charges set, reported Sergeant Hai-Jin Kwan, her voice steady over the team comm. "Ready to breach on your mark." Jinwoo looked at his team. 6 of humanity's finest space combat specialists. Their armor was scratched and scored from the earlier fighting, but every system was functional. The Vaisraks hadn't expected humans to have armor that could withstand their weapons. "Remember your training," Jinwoo said, checking his weapon. "They have better technology, but we have something they don't: experience. Humanity didn't get to the stars by being easy prey." The team moved into position around the airlock. Their breach pods were primitive by Vaisrak standards, simple devices that used controlled explosions rather than energy fields. But that was the point. The aliens would be looking for advanced technology, not the basic physics of shake charges. "Strike team ready," Jinwoo reported to the bridge, awaiting final authorization. Captain Jaiho's voice came back clear and confident. "Authorization granted. Show them why humans are the most feared boarding specialists in known space." Jinwoo gave the signal. The breach charges detonated silently in the vacuum of space, sending precise shockwaves through the Vaisrak's hull. Their advanced materials crumpled under the primitive but effective force. "Move," Jinwoo ordered. His team launched themselves through the breach, using their suits' thrusters with practiced precision. The Vaisrak ship's artificial gravity was still active, but the team had trained for this. They landed in combat formation, weapons ready. The aliens reacted quickly, but not quickly enough. They hadn't expected an attack. Their security systems were designed to keep people out, not to deal with enemies already inside. "First junction secured," Hai-Jin reported, her rifle tracking movement in the corridor ahead, detecting multiple hostiles approaching from the port section. Jinwoo nodded inside his helmet. "Just like the simulations. Implement attack pattern Delta." The team split into practiced formations. Humans had been fighting in spacecraft for centuries, learning through bitter experience how to turn the confined spaces to their advantage. The Vaisraks were about to learn these lessons the hard way. The first group of aliens rounded the corner, their living armor glowing with power. They fired energy weapons that would have disabled most electronic systems. But human armor relied on mechanical backups, another lesson learned through generations of warfare. "Now," Jinwoo shouted. His team deployed smoke grenades, not the advanced chemical versions, but simple particles that scattered light and disrupted energy weapons. The Vaisraks' superior targeting systems were suddenly useless. The fight was brutal and quick. The aliens had never faced opponents who combined primitive and advanced tactics so effectively. While they tried to recalibrate their weapons, Jinwoo's team closed to close combat range. "Bridge section located," called out Corporal Minho Park, consulting his motion sensors. 2 levels up, heavy resistance expected." Jinwoo smiled grimly. "Perfect. Time for Phase 2. He activated his comm. "Engineering, begin electronic warfare suite." Throughout the Vaisrak ship, systems began to malfunction. Human viruses, crude by alien standards but effective, disrupted their advanced networks. The aliens had built their systems to resist sophisticated attacks, not simple ones that brute forced their way through defenses. The team fought their way upward, using tactics developed in countless space battles. The Vaisraks were learning too late that humans excelled at turning their enemies' strengths against them. Their advanced ship design, with its efficient layout, became a trap as Jinwoo's team used controlled decompression to isolate sections. "Bridge sealed," a Vaisrak's voice came over their captured communications. "They cannot breach our command center." "Watch us," Jinwoo muttered, pulling out their final surprise. The breach charge looked like a simple explosive, but it contained a very special payload, a lesson learned from the Mars Rebellion. The charge detonated, releasing a cloud of microscopic machines, not advanced AI nanites that the Vaisraks could counter, but simple mechanical devices that ate through metal using basic chemistry. The bridge doors began to dissolve. "Last push," Jinwoo ordered. "Show them why humans always plan for boarding actions." The team burst onto the bridge in perfect formation. The Vazrax commanders found themselves facing opponents who had turned space combat into an art form through necessity rather than choice. The fight was over in seconds. Bridge secured, Jinwoo reported to the Artemis. Vazrax command staff captured. Their overconfidence was indeed their undoing. He looked around at the alien bridge with its advanced systems now under human control. The Vazrax would learn from this, but the lesson would come too late. They had made the same mistake as so many others, assuming that superior technology meant certain victory. Begin download of their navigation data, Jinwoo ordered. Let's find out where these pirates have been hiding. The Vazrax ship was theirs, taken by a boarding team using tactics that mixed the primitive with the advanced. It was a very human victory, not through overwhelming force or superior technology, but through adaptation, determination, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to win. Send word to the fleet, Jinwoo said, watching his team secure their prisoners. Tell them humans are about to introduce themselves to the pirate community. They're going to learn why we've survived everything the galaxy has thrown at us. The captured bridge hummed with activity as human engineers began their work. The Vazrax had started this fight, but humans would finish it. That was another lesson the galaxy was about to learn. Never start a fight with a species that had turned survival into an art form. Chief Medical Officer Eugene Ba moved efficiently through the converted cargo bay that now served as a medical ward. The room was filled with both human and Vazrax wounded from the battle. Her medical team worked steadily, treating all patients with equal attention regardless of their species. Eugene approached the bed where the Vazrax captain lay, his living armor now dim and damaged. She checked the medical scanner she had modified to read Vazrax biology. Their physiology was different from humans, but the basic principles of trauma care remained the same. The pain should be lessening now, she said, adjusting the medication flow. Your species metabolizes our painkillers differently, but we've found the right balance. The Vazrax captain's eyes, all four of them, focused on her with obvious confusion. Why do you help us? We attacked your ship. We tried to kill your crew. Eugene continued her work, carefully cleaning a wound where the living armor had been breached. Because that's what doctors do. It's been our way since before we reached the stars. In the bed next to them, a human crewman was being treated for plasma burns. The Vazrax captain watched as Eugene paused to check on him, giving the same careful attention she had shown to the alien patients. Your species, you fight like demons but heal your enemies. The Vazrax captain asked weakly. This makes no sense. Our warriors would never show such mercy. We're complicated like that. Eugene replied, returning to treat his wounds. Humans learned long ago that today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally. Besides, there's much we can learn from each other. She gestured to the medical displays showing Vazrax biological data. Your living armor, for instance. It's fascinating from a medical perspective. The way it integrates with your nervous system could help us develop better treatments for human nerve damage. The captain tried to move, then winced. You study us even now, while treating our wounds. Always learning. That's another human trait, Eugene said, administering another dose of modified painkillers. We've survived this long by adapting, by understanding both our friends and enemies. Around them, other Vazrax warriors watched the medical team work. Their expressions showed a mixture of surprise and growing respect. They had expected to be treated as prisoners, not patients. Doctor, one of her assistants called out. The Vazrax in bed 3 is showing signs of infection. Their biological responses are different from our models. Eugene moved quickly to the other patient, her mind already working on the problem. Increase the broad-spectrum antibiotics, but modify the delivery method. Their cellular structure suggests they'll respond better to direct tissue treatment. The Vazrax captain watched her work. You developed treatments for us this quickly. How? We've had lots of practice, Eugene explained, returning to check his vitals. Humans have fought so many wars that medicine became as important as weapons. Every battle taught us more about healing. She pulled up more detailed scans of his armor's interaction with his nervous system. Your technology is impressive, but it has weaknesses. The neural links make you vulnerable to shock damage. We can help strengthen those connections during healing. Help us become stronger, the captain asked incredulously. After we tried to raid your ship. Jin smiled slightly. The best way to prevent future attacks is to show why they're unnecessary. Your people clearly value strength. We're showing you a different kind of strength. She moved to treat another patient, continuing to explain as she worked. Humans discovered that real power isn't just about winning fights. It's about what you do after the fighting stops. The medical bay continued its operation, a testament to humanity's complex nature. The Vaysracs watched as their wounded were treated with the same advanced care as the humans, their understanding of their former prey shifting with each passing hour. Your people are strange, the Vaysracs captain finally said. You fight without fear, yet show mercy without hesitation. You use primitive weapons, yet have medical technology that matches ours. That's humanity for you, Jin replied, making final adjustments to his treatment. We've learned that survival sometimes means fighting like demons, but living like healers. It's served us well so far. She checked the final readings on her scanner. The Vaysracs were healing well, their living armor beginning to regenerate with the help of human medical science. Another lesson had been taught, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or tactics, but in its ability to turn enemies into patients, and eventually, perhaps into allies. Rest now, she told the captain. When you're healed, maybe we can talk about ways to avoid future misunderstandings. After all, doctors prefer preventing injuries to treating them. The medical bay settled into a quiet rhythm of healing, both species learning that sometimes the greatest victories come not from the battle itself, but from what happens after the fighting ends. Communications officer Taiwan Kim sat at his console, carefully preparing the message that would soon spread across pirate frequencies throughout this sector of space. Behind him, Captain Jaiho Park stood watching the final compilation of battle footage, sensor data, and ship logs that would show exactly what happened when the Vaysracs made the mistake of attacking the human vessel. All feeds ready, Captain, Taiwan reported, his fingers moving across the controls. The encrypted channels we found in their database will let us reach every major pirate haven in range. Jaiho nodded, studying the main screen where the message was being assembled. Show me the final version before we broadcast. The screen lit up with carefully selected footage. It began with the Vaysrac ship approaching the Artemis, showing their confident attack and boarding attempt. Then came the footage from the ship's internal cameras, the security team's counterattack, the engineering crew's clever defensive measures, and finally the successful boarding action that captured the pirate vessel. I've added translations in all major trading languages, Taiwan explained. Even species that have never met humans before will understand exactly what happened here. The bridge crew watched as the message played out. It wasn't just a warning, it was a lesson. The footage showed how the seemingly primitive human vessel had turned the tables on their technologically superior attackers. Add the medical bay footage, Jaiho ordered. Show them how we treated their wounded. Let them see both sides of humanity. Taiwan nodded, adding the scenes of Chief Medical Officer Jin, treating both human and Vaysrac's casualties with equal care. It was another message. Humans could be merciful victors when given the chance. Final section ready, Taiwan reported. Adding the data we recovered from their ship, locations of their bases, their regular hunting grounds, their fleet movements. The captain smiled slightly. Let them see that we know where they hide. Sometimes the threat of action is more effective than action itself. The message was taking shape, a perfect blend of warning and opportunity. It showed the Vaysracs' defeat, but also their treatment afterward. It demonstrated human military capability while hinting at the benefits of peaceful cooperation. Broadcasting now on all frequencies, Taiwan announced, initiating the transmission. The message began streaming out across space, carried by both standard communications and the secret channels they discovered in the Vazrak ship's computers. Jai-Ho watched the data stream indicators, knowing that across the sector, pirate crews would be receiving this very clear message about the consequences of attacking human vessels. Add a final note, he instructed. Let them know that the Artemis was a medical supply ship, one of our lighter armed vessels. Let them wonder what our warships are capable of. Taiwan added the information, a subtle but clear reminder that this defeat had been handed to them by what humans considered a minimal defensive force. Receiving first responses, Taiwan reported, as signals began coming back. Multiple pirate groups acknowledging receipt. Some are already broadcasting orders to avoid human ships. The bridge crew shared knowing looks. The plan was working perfectly. Pirates operated on reputation, as much as actual strength, and this message would establish humanity's reputation very clearly. Send the second part of the message, Jai-Ho ordered. The offer of peaceful trade and potential cooperation. Let them see there's a better option than conflict. Taiwan transmitted the additional data. Carefully prepared trade proposals, suggestions for mutual protection agreements, opportunities for legitimate business. It was the carrot after the stick, showing that humans could be valuable allies as well as dangerous enemies. Message fully transmitted, Taiwan confirmed. Reaching all known pirate havens in this sector, based on their communication patterns, it should spread to adjacent sectors within days. Jai-Ho nodded with satisfaction. Sometimes the best victories come not from destroying your enemy, but from making them choose never to fight you again. The bridge fell silent as they watched the message continue to spread. They had achieved something remarkable, not just defeating a powerful enemy, but turning that defeat into a tool for future peace. Should we transmit the medical data as well? Taiwan asked. Dr. Yu Jin's findings on their biology could be valuable to them. Do it, Jai-Ho confirmed. Show them that humanity is willing to share knowledge, even with former enemies. Let them see all sides of what dealing with humans means. The final data streamed out across space, carrying not just a warning, but an invitation. The pirates would learn that humans were complex, capable of both fierce fighting and generous cooperation. Message complete, Taiwan reported finally. All channels acknowledge receipt. The Vazrax incident will be known throughout pirate space within the week. Jai-Ho smiled, knowing that his ship and crew had just changed the balance of power in this sector of space, not through overwhelming force or superior technology, but through the uniquely human combination of strength, mercy, and strategic thinking. Well done, he told his crew. We came here to deliver medical supplies. Instead, we may have delivered something even more valuable, peace through understanding. The Artemis continued its journey, leaving behind a message that would echo through pirate space for years to come. Humanity had announced its presence, not just as a species to be feared, but as one to be respected and potentially allied with. In the bustling spaceport of New Singapore, 3 months after the Artemis incident, Navigation Officer He-Yun Lee sat in a crowded trading bar, listening to aliens tell stories about her ship. The tales had grown with each retelling, but the core truth remained the same. Humans were not to be underestimated. A Vazrax trader, not a pirate, but a legitimate merchant, was describing the incident to a group of wide-eyed listeners from various species. He-Yun sipped her drink quietly, amused by how the story had evolved. They fought like warriors born in the void, the Vazrax was saying, his living armor glowing softly in the dim bar light. Their ship seemed primitive, but it was a trap. Everything about humans is a trap. He-Yun watched as other traders and crew members gathered around. The Artemis incident had become something of a legend in this part of space, growing bigger with each telling. I heard they captured the pirate ship with just 6 warriors, someone in the crowd said. 6 against a full Vazrax crew. And their doctor, another voice added. They say she learned Vazrax biology faster than their own medical teams. Treated the wounded pirates like they were her own crew. The Vazrax trader nodded solemnly. That's the thing about humans. They're full of contradictions. They fight like demons but heal like angels. They use primitive weapons but fight with advanced tactics. Every pirate captain in 3 sectors has added a new rule: avoid human vessels at all costs. Hei-yun smiled slightly, remembering the real battle. It hadn't been as dramatic as the story suggested, but the outcome had been just as significant. The Artemis had changed the balance of power in this region of space. "You know what's really interesting?" a gruff voice asked. "Since that incident, pirate attacks in human-patrolled sectors have dropped by 80%. Just one ship, one encounter, and they learned." The crowd murmured in agreement. Hei-yun listened as they shared what they'd heard about human ships, how they were built with layers of redundant systems, how their crews were trained to fight in ways that made superior technology meaningless. "I heard the Artemis was just a medical transport," someone said. "Imagine what their actual warships must be like." That brought a nervous laugh from the crowd. Nobody wanted to find out. The reputation of human vessels had spread far beyond the initial incident. A young alien crew member, species unknown to Hei-yun, spoke up. "But why don't humans brag about it? Every other species would be using this to dominate trading routes." The Vazrax trader laughed. "That's another human trick. They don't need to brag. The story spreads itself, and their silence makes them even more intimidating." Hei-yun finally spoke, unable to resist. "Sometimes the best defense is a reputation for being more trouble than you're worth." The crowd turned to look at her, not knowing they were listening to one of the actual participants in the legendary incident. She enjoyed her anonymity, listening as they continued to share stories and speculations about human ships and crews. The Artemis incident had achieved exactly what Captain Jiho had hoped for: not just victory in a single battle, but a lasting peace based on mutual respect and understanding. Pirates now avoided human ships, legitimate traders sought human protection, and the shipping lanes were safer for everyone. More stories circulated through the bar, tales of human ingenuity, of their strange combination of primitive and advanced technology, of their ability to turn defeat into victory. Each story added to the legend, and each retelling made human ships a little safer in dangerous space. "You know what really scares pirates?" the Vazrax trader asked his audience. "It's not human weapons or tactics. It's that you never know what they'll do. They're unpredictable, adaptable, and always surprising." Hei-yun finished her drink, leaving the bar as the stories continued. Outside, through the spaceport's massive windows, she could see the Artemis docked alongside ships from a dozen different species. Its hull still showed some marks from the battle, left there deliberately. Another subtle message to anyone thinking of causing trouble. The story of the Artemis had spread through trading lanes and pirate havens, growing into something larger than the actual event. But that was fine. Sometimes legends were more effective than weapons, and reputations could prevent battles before they began. Later, in a message to Captain Jiho, Hei-yun would summarize what she'd heard in the bar. "Our reputation grows," she wrote. "The pirates call us demons, the traders call us protectors, and everyone agrees on one thing: humans are not to be underestimated." The Artemis continued its missions, carrying medical supplies to those in need. But it carried something else now, a legend that made the spaceways a little safer for everyone. Not through force or fear, but through the uniquely human combination of strength, mercy, and the willingness to be underestimated just once. As Hei-yun had said in the bar, sometimes the best defense was a reputation for being more trouble than you're worth. The Artemis had earned that reputation, and in doing so, had changed this corner of the galaxy forever.